We will get started in just a minute here. It's just loading up now. Okay, and we are on. We'll give everyone, I'd say maybe another minute or two to get here, just because everyone's clock's a little different and you have to find your buttons to click and click the buttons. But we're excited to have you here today. And yes, you are in the right spot. And if you're wondering, yes, there will be a replay available to you. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll go ahead and give another minute or so. One thing that one of my mentors, colleagues, a speeching coach, Sinette Stevens, always does, which is great, is starts off her calls with an item of gratitude. So if you're on here and waiting for us to get started, why don't you go ahead and think of something that you're grateful for today? And I will share something that I'm grateful for while we're waiting. So I am grateful for my very cooperative kids who are very cooperative today. Of course, they're not always cooperative, but I am thankful, grateful for that. Do you want to share one, Patty, before we
I
get
would
started?
love to. I am grateful that the technology is working because
Yeah.
technology can be finicky and it seems to be doing pretty well right now. So I'm happy with that.
Great. Okay, we will go ahead and get started now. I'll introduce us now that we've already talked to you a bit. Again, thanks for signing up. And if you have any questions or comments as we go along, you're watching this through a standard Facebook platform, so you can comment below and I will be monitoring those. We will be doing a question and answers. So first up is Patty. She is a boundaries expert and creator of the online course Set Boundaries Like a Boss. So I will let her go ahead and further introduce herself, and she will be talking to you first. Go ahead, Patty.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Kathy. I'm really, really happy to be doing this. It's interesting because Kathy and I were talking about how incredibly brave you have to be to step out onto your creative path. I mean, if you're an author or you're a course creator or an artist or even a serious wannabe, and you have like this really, really deep desire to create something, more than just oh, it'd be nice to write a book someday. I'm talking about that deep in your heart, I've got to get this out of me type of thing. It's almost like an obsession, right? You dream about it, you think about it, you play with it in your mind all the time. It's brave when you actually step out onto the path, whether it's by announcing to your family or saying, hey, I'm writing this book, or putting it in your byline someplace, I'm an author, I'm a course creator. You know, it takes bravery to take something, and willingness, right? To take something out of this nebulous world of thoughts and to pull it down into the manifest reality and make it real. And I don't mean manifest as in I'm going to close my eyes and think about it every day, right? You know, for 30 days, and it's going to appear, because it's a lot of work. So pulling it out of the ether and turning it into something real, it takes a lot of bravery to do that. When it's out there, it's not as risky. It may drive you crazy, because if you've got like a soul desire to create something, it's not going to let you go very easily. When you pull it in, you're going to hit two types of gremlin voices, right? The inner gremlin voice, your inner gremlin voices, the ones that say, who do you think you are to do that? You don't know enough to do this. You'll never be as good as, and you fill in the blank. And then you might also have the voices of the people that surround you. And these could be actually people that really do love you and really do care about you, but they just don't get it because it's not their creative baby, right? When you've got that creative baby that you're trying to birth, it's got to be, you're the one who's got the passion about it, not them. They may not get it. They can do things like just minimize what you're doing. You might overhear your husband talking to somebody and saying, oh, she's got this little side gig hobby thing she's doing. Or you might get some very pointed replies or responses your parents who say, when are you going to get a real job? Or when are you going to use that degree you went to school for, right? I worked once with somebody who said that what she really wanted more than anything else was to be in a creative bubble that she could create. If she could live in this bubble and she could have like a patron, somebody who sponsored her work and who paid for her mortgage and took care of the kids. And if he could go on to, he or she, right, she wasn't picky, could go onto her calendar and make sure that it was cleared of all the crap that drained her so that she couldn't actually get to the job of writing. So things like cleaning toilets and paying your bills. And if she could do that, then she knew that she had this book in her. And we laughed because she was kidding. And I said, if you ever find that person, please let me know. And of course, she never has. And I'm not sure that you actually could birth something out of that type of environment. There is something about going through the process of labor pains, right? The taking that dream and forming it into this real world. You've got to have passion. You've got to have commitment. You can't outsource that to somebody else. You can't expect somebody else to care about your dreams as much as you do. You have to be the person who owns that. My husband used to do triathlons. He would, his big thing was he was going to do an Ironman triathlon. Oh my gosh, the people who do that are so committed and they're so passionate about it, and they just work out and work out and work out. And you talk about nutritions and timings and this and that. And I could support him all day long. I could get up at 4:30 in the morning and go to, not all the races, but some of them. I could drive out of town with him. I could go be the holder of the stuff at the finish line, right? The holder of the stuff. But it wasn't ever my dream. And so I could be as happy for him and as supportive as possible, but I didn't have the passion for it. The people in your life are not going to have that kind of drive and passion. And if you are expecting them, who some of them, it might be, like I was, I'm supportive of you, but hey, I'm only getting up at 4:30 sometimes. And some of them may be actively sabotaging you. But if you are expecting them to hold boundaries around your time, around your energy, around this creative baby that you are birthing and you are nurturing and flourishing, then you've outsourced your boundaries to somebody else, which means you've given your power away. It doesn't work like that, right? The person who violates our boundaries is only partially at fault. Part of it is us. We have to actually hold those boundaries. So now that you know, okay, my job is to midwife and nurture and protect my creative baby, and I can't outsource this, and it has to be mine, and I have to have the resolve to do what's necessary to make this flourish. How do I do that if I have people that are non-supportive? Because I do live in relation with other people. Well, the key is, just like we've talked, it's about boundaries. So I'd like you to think about, in your own world, what is a small step, something that you know in your heart you need to set a boundary around your creative process. And I want you to think of something small to medium size, and here's why. If it's something really, really huge and really challenging, a lot of times those have a lot of baggage that are connected with them. And so in the boundaries class that I do, we do small, easy wins first because we want to win. The big challenging things, let's say that you've got an ex who is super, super drama-filled and is a narcissist, and you're in a big custody battle. That's a lot of stuff going on right there, okay? Pick an easy win. So now that you think about this easy thing, whether it's, think about your time. Do you have to set better boundaries around your time? Maybe that's telling your spouse, I need to get up at 5:30 in the morning to write, so I need lights out by 10, or I'll go into the other room by 10 o'clock. Maybe it's around money. I know that money is tight, but it's really, really important for me to invest in this class because it's furthering my craft and trade, and so you find a way to do that. Maybe it's about your physical space. You've got roommates or you've got kids who are using your office as a dumping ground, and they've got books all over the place, or they're traipsing in and out of it, right? Maybe it's about your energy. Do you have better energy in the morning? And so you want to create your day so that you've got all your creative juices in the morning. Maybe you're a nighttime person, and so you need to rearrange things for the night. Maybe it's your energy and you're spending a bunch of time on things that are okay, but they don't fill your bucket. Maybe you don't really want to be, in the PTA or, baking cookies for the bake sale, or you'd really actually like to be putting that energy into your creative baby. Whatever it is for you, okay, think about what that boundary would be. And then take a piece of paper, or you could do this mentally. At the end of the class, I'll give you my website, and you'll be able to pull this directly off of my website. But if you create 3 columns on a piece of paper, and right at the top of each of those columns, the first one is going to say result. Second one is going to say self-esteem. Third one is going to say relationship. So result, self-esteem, relationship. These are the 3 lenses through which I want you to look at your boundary. And what you do is you choose the lens that works for you. And so we're going to go through them so you'll understand that. But basically, for results, when I care about results first, I'm going to be polite, I'm going to be firm, but I'm going to be resolved. We're not going to have a big old conversation about your feelings and all this. I'm not going to be mean to you, but I've already resolved to the fact that getting this result is what I need. If it's about self-esteem, when I say self-esteem, what I mean is yes, it's important for me to get the result, but it's really important for me to speak my heart, to speak my mind, to speak my truth. So it's important for me to tell you why I need this boundary, or why you violating this boundary isn't cool with me. In that case, it's going to be about being respectful, brave, and brief. The third one is about relationship. If the relationship is as important as me getting that result, then I want to be empathetic, I want to be kind, I want to be inclusive. So let's take an example so that you can kind of see what those would look like through those 3 different lenses. Let's say that you decided that you need a Saturday of just uninterrupted time with no kids for at least 6 hours to work on your manuscript. You've got some big deadline coming, and you've asked somebody to take care of the kids, and they've agreed. You were assertive. You said, I need you to be here from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, because we're at blame if we're not clear about what we need. So you did that, and they renege on you the day before, or they change the plans on you. Right at that point, you have a choice point. You can either give up on your creative baby, not keep it safe, and just say, well, that's just the way it is, right? You can get really angry and get into a bunch of drama with the person who broke the commitment with you, right? That may or may not actually get anything to change. Probably not if you're going into drama and you're still not getting the time that you need to work. Or you could figure out a way to get what you need by using one of these 3 lenses. Let's say that it was a babysitter and it's somebody who you've hired before. So you've got a professional relationship with this person. Well, if it was me, I would go through results with that, because basically that's an employee, right? I'm paying you for a service. And if she called me or texted me probably the day before and said, hey, I can't be there at 9 o'clock because my little brother is in a championship soccer game and he's asked me to go, and I really, really want to go to that, so I'll just come by your house. I know you're just working from home. I'll just come by your house afterwards. It's probably going to be about 11 o'clock. Through the lens of result, what you would do is say, okay, I want to be polite, but I want to be firm and resolved. When I'm resolved, I'm not going back and forth in my mind about, well, it is her little brother, well, I don't want to make her mad. No, I'm resolved. Look, I need this result. And so you might go back to her with a text or a quick voicemail, or call her up and say, that doesn't work for me. We agreed at 9 o'clock and I need to know if you're going to be here at 9, because if you're not, I'm going to need to get somebody else. Period. You could go into all of the emotion that you have, how angry you are, how disappointed you are. But if you did that, you'd be wasting a whole bunch of energy when all you really want is result. All you really want is to be able to have the time on Saturday to work on your manuscript, okay? So that's how the result would work. Now let's talk about going through self-esteem. Like I said before, self-esteem is really about you being able to give voice to your feelings. So let's say that your husband is the person who said, yeah, I'll take care of the kids. Again, you have asked from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, so nobody's reading anybody's mind, and he actually said yes, right? We communicated. And then the night before, he goes, hey, you know, I know you want me to take care of the kids tomorrow. Some of my buddies, we're all going to go bike riding in the morning before it gets hot. So I'll just take care of them later. It'll be about 11 o'clock. You're at that choice point. Do you just let that go? Probably going into resentment, right? Did you start a fight right there telling him about how this is the 5th time this month and he never takes them, right? Or do you just let it go and just say, well, I guess I'm not going to get to work on my baby, and there your baby over here isn't getting attention that it needs. Or maybe you come through self-esteem. When you talk to somebody in boundaries around self-esteem, you're going to be respectful, brave, meaning that I'm actually going to speak my truth, but I'm going to be brief because I don't want to get into a big, long, drawn out, energy draining argument with somebody. It's most important for me to just tell you how I feel and why. So what you might say there is, you know, John, that's really disappointing to me because I was counting on you taking the kids from 9 o'clock. I've got everything booked between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. It makes me feel like my stuff isn't as important as your stuff when that happens. And I do want to talk about this later, but for right now, I just need to know if you can't do the 9 a.m. thing, I need to find somebody else. Now, he may change his mind. He may not change his mind. Could he take it wrong and it turns into more of a discussion than you're wanting to have? Yeah, maybe. But you're going to have to deal with that anyway. The point here is that you are able to speak your truth and you aren't just stuffing your feelings and you're telling them why it's not okay. All right, so the third lens is relationship. Now, before I get into that, one caveat is I get a lot of people who say, oh, but relationship's always important. The things about relationship is when I'm talking to somebody in relationship, I'm being empathetic, I'm being kind, and I'm being inclusive. And I'm opening up for a back and forth, a discussion, okay? So I'm more flexible here because the relationship is at least as important as me getting my result. So if you are always falling into relationship and you're always going into a negotiation with somebody around a boundary, then really what you might have is fear of conflict. So let's talk about what that looks like and you can see what I mean. Let's say that you have your best friend that you're reuniting with, you know, she's just moved back in town and you're purposely nurturing this friendship. And you've asked her if she could take care of the kids. She's agreed to do that. The day before, she sends you a text and she says, hey, I just found out that my son is playing soccer in the morning. So after his game is when I'll come by. It's probably going to be about 11 o'clock. Okay, you're at that choice point again. If you just stuff your feelings, don't say anything, how long is it going to be before you get resentful? Also, if you really are saying that the relationship is as important as your result, stuffing your feelings and not speaking is not an authentic way to be in relationship. And so that's not really good for the relationship either. Just ignoring your needs for the sake of somebody else really means that you're more conflict avoidant. And what you're really wanting to work on is your conflict avoidance skills. You want to work on your assertiveness and in believing that you have as much of a right to honor your time, to have your dreams, to have your needs as anybody else does. So what you might do with her, and this one I would do by phone because relationship's most important, so tone of voice is going to be important, or I might do it in person, is to say, hey, Janice, I got your message. Listen, I totally get it that you want to be at your son's soccer game. I totally get that. It's really disappointing to me, though. I did have everything planned starting at 9 a.m., going all the way to 3 p.m. Is there a way we could do a win-win? Maybe you could take my kids with you to watch your son's soccer game. What you're doing here is you're asking her and you're engaging her in a conversation, right? As opposed to the first one, which was about result, which is where you were saying, here's the limit. Here's the boundary. If you aren't going to be able to come, I'm getting another babysitter. In relationship, we're actually having a conversation, okay? Now, all three of these, in none of them did we say that you were not going to get what you wanted, or that you were going to back down, rather, this is a better way to say it, that you were backing down on what you needed. You might need to be flexible, right? You might need to work with the other person. It may not go the way you think it is. But if, when you hit some kind of obstacle like that, if you don't have the guts and the courage to stand up for your creative space, to take care of and nurture your creative baby, then you're never going to get it to flourishing. You have to believe that this is important enough for me to take the time, and for me to learn how to set boundaries. If boundaries are something that are hard for you, because they're hard for a lot of people sometimes, to learn the skill, because I really absolutely believe that it's a skill. You may have a challenging scenario, like I said before, and for that you can get help on creating a plan for it. But once you've got that, it's really just a skill. So I want to leave you with one last thing, and this is a way for you to reframe success and failure. If you take the guts, take the bravery, you step out on this creative path, you say, yes, I'm committed to it. I am going to do what it takes to nurture my baby, to nourish my baby, to set up the boundaries so that my baby can flourish. Be careful that you don't have really rigid black and white, what is success and what's failure. Either around your ability to set boundaries. So let's say that you decide, I'm going to get up at 5:30 every morning for 4 days to write, and you're not able to do it for 2 of those days because family conflict or whatever, okay? If you say, oh my God, I'm a failure, all right, well, that's not going to get you very far, right? That just didn't work. Let's try something new. Or if you are very rigid in what is success or failure on the outcome of your creative baby. If you have decided, when I write this book, it must become a bestseller within 5 weeks, 10 weeks, a year, whatever, in order for me to be a success. Otherwise, what's the point? Well, you've painted yourself into a really narrow, rigid box. Yeah, is that the goal that you want? If that's your goal, absolutely go for it, right? Do have the resolve to do what it takes in order to get there. But what if along the way you start writing your book, and halfway through you realize this really isn't a book I want to write, it's really a screenplay. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize this is a screenplay. Or you start writing it and you realize, wait a second, this really this would work better as a series of short stories. Or, I'm writing this, but I think what I really want to do is I want to put it out to the public as a series of blog posts to support like a business that I've got or a course that I'm doing. All those other options, whenever you get really super narrow focused and say this is success and this is failure, we are completely blind to something else that might be possible. Creativity is standing on the edge of the unknown and waiting to see what's the next possibility as you kind of step out there. So play with it, have fun, but also be serious enough to say this is worth protecting, and figure out how to set your boundaries around your energy, your time, your money, around your creative baby, so that it can turn into whatever it is that it's going to be. But have fun with it. I hope you found this useful. I will put my website up in the chat box, and you can go there and you can download the sheet that talks about the results, self-esteem, and relationship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. Actually, how about if I type it in for you right here on the Facebook page?
That would be awesome. I'll put it in the chat box.
And we have one question. Do you want to take it now, or
Sure.
do you want to take it later?
Absolutely.
It is from Bev. And Bev asks, when using a relationship lens, for example, with Janice, how can one keep this when discussing in person?
How can what say again? How can one
keep the emotion out of this when discussing in person?
That's actually a good question. So the relationship lens really is about coming from your heart. Okay. So it's not that you have to be stoic when you're talking to them, right? It's about just it's just about going to your heart. And so if this is a true friend, and you can actually even say, you know what, that really disappointed me when you said that. I thought I could count on you. You can go into emotion, but what you're really wanting to do is also be empathetic, which means I can listen to the other person. I can put myself in that other person's shoes. So it's not just my emotion. I also want to understand from Janice why she thought that was okay, right? If it's a pattern with Janice, I want to be able to explain to her from my perspective. And so you don't have to be stoic and necessarily keep emotion out. And with some friends, if it's a real authentic relationship, you might be angry, right? And the point is, you don't want to be hijacked by that anger, and you want to be able to listen to the other person. Does that answer the question, Bev?
So there's a bit of a delay, but I think that it did a good job answering the question. I guess if you have additional questions on that, Bev, go ahead and type it in. And we'll get to it at the end if we don't see it before then. Okay, well, I will assume that is good enough, and I'll go ahead and start unless there's anything else that you want to add to that,
No,
Patty.
I think that's good.
Okay. Well, I will start by introducing myself. I am Kathy Wheeler, and I am a coach and an author. I'm the creator of the 90-Day Book program at the90daybook.com. And just a bit of my background, I actually have an engineering degree, so I am more of a process person, which is great because I took those process skills and made it easy to write a book because I broke it down step by step. So I transitioned from being an engineer to more of the marketing side first. And then I got into book writing. I love, love, love writing books. I started one, life got in the way. That's how I know there's fears and excuses. I paused that for 10, 15 years, quite a long time. And then when self-publishing came around, I realized the world of opportunity that was out there to really get the messages that I wanted to get out to the world. But not only that, but really the power of a book and all the impact that it can have on even one person's life, or the impact it can have on your business. So with that in mind, and knowing that one of the fears that many people face is the fear of the unknown, I just wanted to give you a roadmap, a very basic roadmap overview of how to get from you want to write a book to you're holding your book in your hands. So Patty talked a lot about fear and boundaries. Her boundaries were excellent. Thank you so much, Patty. I actually learned and picked up a few tips. Every time I hear about boundaries from you, I do. So those were great. There are just definitely so many fears. So your first step is really to give yourself permission, set your boundaries, know that you have it in you to get this creative baby done. After that, you really need to know your purpose. So why is it that you want to write a book? There's so many reasons out there to write a book. Maybe it's to build your credibility in your business. Maybe it's because it's just always been your dream. Maybe it's because you want to use it like a lead magnet, build your list. You want to be a speaker. And of course, if you're a speaker, you need to have a book to show your message. It helps your audience preview your message. There are so many good reasons to write a book. So really think about what your reason is, why you want to write a book. Now, I will tell you there is one reason that I think is not a good reason to write a book, and that is if you want passive income. Now, books certainly do bring in some passive income, but there are so many easier ways to get passive income than writing a book. It's not just the book writing that's hard, it's the marketing that takes some work. So it's really better to have a different reason for wanting to write your book than passive income. Once you have your purpose solidified, you're going to want to go on to your big idea or your hook. What's the message that you want to get out there to the world? What is it that you have to teach people? What's in your heart? What's in your mind that you want to share? And this is very easy if it's based on your business. And so fiction's going to be a whole different animal. But we're going to talk primarily about nonfiction today. There's a lot of parallels between the two, so it will work for either. But your hook for nonfiction is likely going to be the title and subtitle of your book, not in all cases. but it's your big idea. So I have some examples for you. This is one of my students who just published this book, The Body Image Blueprint, Your Go-To Guide for Radical Self-Reverence. And that's by Jenny Edenberg. And so you can tell right there that her whole hook is body image and loving yourself. So that was her hook. This is another one of my clients, Tina Black, who wrote Be Amazing, The 7 Steps to Success. So her message was all about 7 simple steps to get people to success. And of course, there's some New York Times bestsellers out there too. This one by Greg McKeown is Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. So this gives you some ideas for your big hook. One last one here, Brene Brown, her Rising Strong book, The Reckoning, the Rumble, the Revolution. Then she has her big hook at the bottom. If we are brave enough, often enough, we will fail. Sorry, we will fall. This is a book about what it takes to get back up. So that's her big hook. So if you have these pieces in mind, your purpose and your big hook, it really starts to shape your book and bring it all together for the type of book that you need to write. Another thing you're going to want to take into consideration is your audience. So who knew there was all this pre-work before you even start writing? And this is where a lot of the, like I said already, the book is shaped, but it really brings the book to life. You'll find that it's an organic process, that things might change a bit as you go through. As you go through each step, you'll find that, oh, this is turning out a little bit different. But when you go to look at your audience, you're going to not say your book is for everyone. So you might very well think your message is for everyone, but your book will be so much more effective if you really narrow it down of who you're going to be helping with your book. Who is this specific person? I actually do like you to get it down to one specific person. Their age, I like you to name them. I like you to look at their income, their career, their interests, everything about this person. And what that does is it makes your book so much more conversational when you're writing it. And when you're writing nonfiction, people like to have the conversational aspect. They like to have a story. So think back to some of the great books that you're aware of. And one of them that's coming to mind right now is one of Stephen Covey's book, where he gives the example of you have to put things into perspective because you never know what kind of day people are having. And he tells the story about riding home on the subway, and this gaggle of kids were just being wild and crazy and out of control, just really bothering him. And so he said to the dad, who he assumed was the dad sitting next to him, "Geez, don't you think maybe you should get your kids to sit down?" Something along that line. And the dad said, "Sorry, they just lost their mom, but I guess I really should get them more under control." So something to that extent. The story has so much power. And when you know your audience and the type of stories they'll be attracted to, that makes your point so much easier to get across. You also want to research what is out there. So what is missing in the market? What is it that you can bring to the market that's not already there? What's your unique perspective, your unique point? Once you have all of that work done, you move on to the planning stages. So the planning stages, if you're not an outline person, you can use a mind map. So you start with your big idea in the middle, and then you're going to branch out 8 to 10 points that you'll want to branch out. Points are main ideas. And if you're doing it in an outline format, it will be very structured. So I am all for people working within their creative genius zone. We don't all think the same. We don't all organize the same. We don't all structure things the same. So you need to look at the options out there and choose one that will work for you. Mapper, are you an outliner? Are you a note carder? There's lots of different ways to go through and do this. What you do want, though, is you're going to need 8 to 10 different areas that you want to talk about. These could be things, if you're just not sure what you're going to write about, these could be questions that people ask you about your topic. And these should be things that people want to know. not necessarily the things that you think they need to know. You can and will want to put those into the book, but people will buy a book because it contains what they want to know, not because it contains what they need to know. So that is a good starting point for that. And if you're a little bit stumped or concerned about writing, you can actually think of each chapter as 3 big blog posts put together, and each subsection of the chapter as a big blog post, and put them in that way. So once you have that all done, what you're going to want to come up with is a writing schedule. And this goes right along with what Patty was talking about with boundaries. You're going to want to set clear boundaries around your writing schedule. So this is going for everyone. And I loved that she talked about how we have creative energy at different times. We're more effective at different times of day. So you're going to want to schedule this when your creative energy is good. Even if it's only 15 minutes, get something on the calendar and do it. I recommend daily as the best practice, but that's just not practical for some people. For some people, they have to do a big chunk of time on the weekend. Again, flexibility is important, but you need to have your boundaries. So set your schedule with your boundaries. And if you have a certain timeline or publishing date, all you need to do is schedule your writing for your first draft to be done approximately 6 weeks before you want to publish, and divide your chapters up. So let's say that you have 8 chapters you want to write and you want to be done within 8 weeks with your rough draft. That would mean you would have to do 1 chapter per week. So that will really help you keep on schedule with knowing where you're at, and maybe if you need to amp up your writing some weeks. So now that you have your schedule down, it's time to do the actual writing, which is the fun part for a lot of people. What you want to do is start with the bulk of your book first. So we're going to start with the chapter sections. Do not start with the introduction. I actually like to dive in and start with some of the chapters. Now, if there is a topic that you absolutely loved within your book, but you know it doesn't necessarily fit at the beginning, you can go ahead and start with that. The important thing is that it flows together at the end. So start with whatever you're most excited about and get that done, and then finish up each of your chapters. At the end, you're going to want to write your conclusion and then your introduction. So in your conclusion, and well, actually throughout the book, I should say, you're going to want to invite people into your business, into your website. You're going to want to invite them to know how you work by sharing examples in client case studies, if you have those to share. People love stories, so you're going to want to include those stories to illustrate the points. And in the conclusion, you're going to definitely want to invite them to continue working with you, or at least to take the next step, right? You don't need to go from dating them in the book to marrying them the next day. You could invite them to just take the next step in the journey with you, which might be to sign up for your newsletter. Okay, so you'll write the introduction last, and then you'll go on of the book. And the front matter is what you see in all books: the title page, the copyright page, acknowledgments, and dedications. And there's nice templates that you can copy online that you can just copy and paste to create your book. So those are sections you really shouldn't worry about. Just know that the resources are out there to put them together. Writing your book, you're going to want to know any references that you use within it. So if you refer to a website, a speech, a book, you're going to want to mark that down. And then in the back of the book, you will have a notes section, which will reference all that. And of course, you're going to want the About the Author section, which will include all of your social media contact information, as well as your website. So you have your first draft done. You think you're done. Well, you're not. Now the hard work begins. Now you need to do some rewriting and self-editing. I suggest after you're done, letting it rest at least 24 hours. Some people will say 2 to 3 weeks. Whatever your comfort level is, let it rest and go back and read through. You will be surprised what you'll find that you want to change, how you want to make things clearer. Maybe there's a story that you need to add in that you didn't add that would illustrate the point perfectly. So you need to go back and do all of that. You should have consistency throughout your chapters. So you shouldn't start one chapter with a quote and the next with a story. They need to start consistently. And stories really are the way to do it. If you see a lot of the great books that take off, they're full of stories. People like the stories, as I keep saying. I also have a self-editing checklist that I give to folks, but it includes things such as overused words. So you can do through your word processor a search for overused words. You can do a search for adverbs, because adverbs really make the writing loose. And if you remove those and put in a stronger verb, it really tightens up your writing. Makes a huge difference. There's also a great program out there called Grammarly.com, which is an editor in addition to Word. So it's a little bit stronger than Word's grammar editor. Although I have found that Grammarly in my writing does make mistakes sometimes. So you have to really, you can't just click accept all. You have to think about it. But that is a great resource. It's just Grammarly.com. I believe they do have a trial period if you want to look at that. Then you have the editing, which is the next stage. So even if you think you want to traditionally publish and not self-publish, I recommend having it professionally edited before you send it on to an agent or a publisher. Every book needs to be edited. And this includes, this is because on Amazon, you will see the #1 complaint of self-published books is that it was not edited properly. And just because your mom is an English teacher or your best friend is an English professor or you're an English professor does not mean that it doesn't have to be edited. It still needs to be edited. And I will tell you, this was one of the #1 mistakes I made in my first book. I've published 6 books. I learned so much in my first book. Even with all the research and classes I did not realize how much there was I needed to know. So in that book, I had it proofed by 3 grammar Nazis, I guess, to say a common term. And guess what? There were still errors. I still to this day find a typo or 2. And sometimes this will happen even after you go to the editor. So for example, this weekend, I'm proofing a book for a friend who's had it through the editor twice and through her twice after the editor, and you still just find things. So without the editor, it's disastrous. With an editor, you'll have minimal issues. So I just talked a little bit about traditional versus self-publishing. What I do mostly is almost all of my authors work to be self-published. Now, I will say that's not always the case, and I could really talk about hours for this, so I'm just going to give you a brief snapshot. So in the last several years, the market has been moving more and more to self-publishing. And when you self-publish, you can do the print books like this, right? So you can do a nice print book, and you can do ebooks. You're not limited to just being on Kindle. So it's really a great process. Traditional publishing has really changed. So people think that if you get a traditional publishing deal, you'll be maybe the next John Grisham. You'll be going around the nation signing books. That's just not the case. The marketing support that used to be there with traditional publishers has been pulled back some. Now, of course, if you are a New York Times bestseller, your chances of getting that marketing support are better, but just don't count on that. And for example, I have a friend who sent me a message the other day. His wife published with a very big name publisher, a nonfiction book. And he sent a message saying, okay, she sold 50,000 books, but that was with no support from the publisher. What do I need to do to get her next book self-published? So with no support, she sold 50,000 books, and they were just really disappointed because of all the profits they lost because the publisher got a big cut of that. My philosophy is do not ever, if you want to traditionally publish, do not ever give up on that dream, but set a boundary around it, and maybe never give up. Maybe set a boundary on the dream is more what I should have said from the first place. So if I ever have a client or student who wants to to traditionally publish, then I tell them to go for their dream. And so if you're doing that, you need to get an agent. And so you'll have to go through the agent process, and it's a whole different stream. And I do have people that I can recommend, and programs I can recommend to you to go out that way. So in fact, one of my students who just finished the class happened to meet an agent right towards the end of the class. So she is pursuing that route, and she's deciding right now how long she wants to pursue that route. But I have completely encouraged her to keep up with that route if that's what she wants to do. I will say that 99.9% of the people I work with end up going the traditional publishing route, or I'm sorry, the self-publishing route. So many books are self-published, and especially if you're using it to build your business and want the results sooner rather than later, it's the way to go. So in the self-publishing portion, you're going to need to think of things like the cover. While there are great cover designers out there that you can hire, I highly recommend getting it professionally done. In fact, today I talked with a cover designer who does a lot of work for HarperCollins, and she's out there who is a big name traditional publisher if you're not in the traditional publishing realm. And she is out there helping people do their covers. So there's lots of people out there that can help. There's great resources. You can look at Fiverr.com, 99 Designs, Upwork. There's so many great sources to get a cover. I recommend, unless you're a graphic designer, hiring someone to do it. There are programs where you can do your own, but let me tell you, it will look disastrous. I have one that I did myself that I don't have to grab to show you. Oh, here it is, actually. I hadn't thought of that. So this is half me, half someone else, and it looks disastrous. This is just a proof copy, so it never went out to the world, but you can see the little dots. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm not a graphic designer. And it does say proof inside, so no one but me ever saw that copy. You definitely want your professional designer. The other thing that you'll need to do is format your interior of your book for both the printing and for the Kindle. So there's templates out there. CreateSpace has templates that you can copy and paste your stuff into. You can also format it and make it a little fancier if you want to. This is something you can also hire out. So all this stuff you can do together, place together. You're also going to need to consider your pricing. You're going to want to look at what's out there in the market, who you're competing with for the pricing. You're going to work on your back blurb, which a great way of doing that is looking at what else is out there in the market, and you'll read the patterns and you'll understand their flow. So a good way to do it is just to rewrite a couple of the ones that are out there, and you'll get the flow. That's also a great tip for sales pages. If you see a really good sales page, you'll get the language patterns will get ingrained into your brain if you write them a few times. Never, ever copy. Don't copy, but you'll get language patterns that way. And there are, when you publish through Amazon, there's great sources such as Author Central that will support you as an author. So I recommend for first-time authors especially that publishing through Amazon's platforms, so you'll be on Kindle as well as your print book on Amazon, is really the way to go. They have it set up so nice and easy for new authors to get started enrolling, and that gives you the majority of the market share. Of course, there are other distribution methods, and again, that would be a couple hours to talk about, but just for really simple, easy, step-by-step roadmap, going the Amazon and Kindle route is the best way to go. In terms of time frame, well, people do take years to write books, and I'm not discouraging you from doing that. You just have to look at what your purpose and goals are. So I've already said the class I teach is the 90-day book. I do also work with people who take more than 90 days as well, though. But my class is structured so that if you want to write a shorter book, a 50 to 60-page book, it is quite doable in the 90-page time frame, and it's all broken out based on how long to spend on each area. And most of the books that are written in that time frame are the smaller ones. That's the other thing I didn't talk about for writing. So when you're writing and coming up with your big idea, you do not have to include whole life experience, collection of ideas and messages to share in one book. You might have 2, 3, or more books in you. It's important to really narrow it down to one key idea and not to try to overdo it. We are not writing thick epic journeys. People with ebooks now are used to shorter reads. So a short read is a great way to go for a business book. So I got kind of steered away back to talking about time frame though. So it is very doable to set a 3-month goal. In fact, that I helped a client with this one, the Lemon Parade, she came to me in September and said, I really just want this book to give to Christmas as Christmas presents to my friends and family. Can I get it done by Christmas? And I said, yes, with diligence and determination, you can. And she was determined and got it done. And that's kind of where the start of the 90-day book came from for me, to take her process and help other people who wanted to get a book done in a short time frame, a good quality book done, to be able to get it done and use it for their business. So that is going to wrap up the writing and publishing portion. I would like you to stay for just a second so I can check questions. There's no huge pitch here. I hope today that you were able to discover how to protect your dream. Patty, you learned the most important opinion has to be yours, how to keep your creative babies safe, and how to set boundaries in different ways depending on the situation. Loved the lenses, Patty. So also I hope for me that you learned the importance of knowing your book's purpose, from your purpose to your big idea to writing to your book. So thank you again for joining us. And I am going to check questions right now. It looks like we have several on here. Thank you, Beth. She said to you, Patty, yes, thank you, Patty. I guess it depends on past encounters too. So that is from earlier with the question. She said, when I was talking, just one person who can make a difference for is so powerful and freeing. Yes, it is. And you will hear from your readers, you will hear aid in someone's life. And it's such an amazing feeling that we really have the power to impact people that way. And when you hold your book in your hand, it's hard to capture, and it's your clients finish their books. I have that feeling, but it's even more powerful when you know you changed somebody's life. Also has another question. How can one get comfortable with sharing personal stories? Oh, the fine line between impact and oversharing. Okay, good point, Bev. So that actually is almost a boundaries question that Patty might be able to answer better than me. But one rule of thumb I follow that you can use, you can share stories other people. So you can change the name. And when I do that, I always disclose. I change the name for privacy purposes. But you can include stories about yourself that you maybe don't want people to know was you. Yeah, I think being very vulnerable and real is a good way to connect with people. So I always tend to be very open and connect with people about my mistakes. I even point out my mistakes. There is a boundary line though that's going to be different for each person. That's I don't know. Do you want to talk about that, Patty?
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. So what I would say is look at what is your intent in sharing something. If you, and this just goes in real life, whether you're writing a blog, whether you're talking to somebody, you're sharing to connect with somebody. And if you get that feeling, if you really, really were honest with yourself, that the reason that I'm sharing that much, so much, is because I am trying to manipulate, I'm trying to hook them in a way that's got that kind of icky feeling to it, because I'm coming from kind of an unclean place. That's a totally different feeling. I'm trying to make somebody feel sorry for me. I am trying to manipulate an audience to feel a particular way, versus I want to tell you a story and here's my heart. Here is what's happened to me. I don't share other people's stories unless I get permission from them, Or I will, because I've worked with so many people and so many clients, and I do use a lot of stories, I will do a kind of take 3 clients and put them all together so that they couldn't even recognize themselves if they read it. But yeah, I would say for yourself, look really carefully at your motive and how does it make you feel if you're a little bit more objective of what am I trying to get the reader to feel? Because we all know what that feels like when somebody overshares, like on social media or something like that. It feels manipulative. It feels like you're trying to make me feel sorry or something like that. Versus I'm connecting, because I'm absolutely with you, Kathy. Authenticity is how you connect with people.
Thanks, Patty. That's a good answer, and you're definitely the right one to answer that. So thank you. And so if people go to your site, do you have any free material for them that you'd like to share?
Yeah, if you go to the site, the first page that you go to, you're going to see a big sunflower, and there will be a button that you can push to sign up for a boundaries tip sheet. That'll be the sheet that I was talking about earlier. It's actually from the Set Boundaries Like a Boss course. That's where the 3 lenses come from. But sprinkled throughout the whole thing, you can find, on the different pages, I've got other different freebies. Most of them are boundaries related. Some of them are recovery related, from drugs or alcohol, parenting. And then, of course, I've got the link at the very top to, if somebody's interested in the Set Boundaries Like a Boss course, that'll take you to the sales page that gives the details of what's in that class.
Okay, thank you. Bev put one more comment in. She said, sharing with the intent to connect is a great perspective to hold while writing. Thank you, Patty, she says.
Very good.
Yes. And okay, is there anything else that you would like to say in closing, Patty?
Nothing in particular. I really enjoyed doing this. I like this format. I enjoyed working with you, Kathy, and I actually took notes because I would love to write a book and get to a place to where I could do it. But yeah, very much appreciate all of this, and the people who ask the questions, appreciate that.
Good. Thanks, Patty. Actually, I do have free on my page, the90daybook.com. I have a 3-lesson mini course on how to start your book. So you can just go in there and click in there. I also have a Facebook group link in there too if you want to join. If anyone wants to join, they're welcome to click on that and join. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And this was brand new technology, the first time either of us have used it. So I think that it came off pretty good. And we look forward to hearing from you. Any additional questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.